Every version of us has an expiry date. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because many of us women go through changes and we don't understand why. We just change all of a sudden. We wake up and how we were yesterday is not how we are today. How we thought yesterday is not how we think today. And we may have wanted to be in a loving relationship yesterday, but today we've actually woken up to the reality of the life and the relationship that we're living in, and we don't want it anymore. And that's scary. And we don't know why. And it's because that version of you that wanted those things has actually expired. I'm going to go a bit deeper into this because I remember at the point that I knew my relationship was done, my previous relationship was done. I was a whole new version of me, and I did not know where this version of me had come from. I was like, you've been wanting to leave this guy for years. How all of a sudden is today the day and you are capable to do this? And it was because a new version of me had come to light after another version of me had expired. Many of us don't realize that we are playing so many different versions of us that we think we should be based on what we've been told as children. So, as example, when we've been growing up, we've been seeing the relationship between our mum and dads and how our mum has acted in the relationship and how our dad has acted in the relationship actually becomes normal. So what happens is when you then later go into a relationship, you take on the same roles as what your mum has done when you was growing up. And you've been doing that role for so long, yet it's actually been making you miserable. And it's only when you truly realize the lesson behind this that this way of living is not right, it's not making me happy. You've actually learnt that lesson that that version of you was here to learn. And once you've learnt that lesson, that version of you has then expired. It's no longer needed because you've learnt the lesson. And many of us don't realize that this is why we're here. We're here to learn certain lessons in our life. And certain people are put in our life to learn those lessons. Once the lesson itself is learnt, they're no longer needed. Just like that version of you is no longer needed. And this is known as a karmic cycle. A karmic cycle is very much, a karmic is very much here to teach you a lesson. That could be a karmic partner or a karmic lesson. Either one, they've come into your life to teach that version of you something. And when I heard all about this concept, I was like, now I understand why I was with the person that I was with in my previous relationship, because he came to me as a lesson. There was so many karmic situations and so many versions of myself that were not supporting me, that needed looking at. And he was the person for the job. How he acted with me exposed all the things that I needed to heal in my life. But at that point, I wasn't strong enough to face that, to know that. So instead, I kept trying to play the roles that needed to be played. I had so many different versions of me running around trying to play all these different roles until I got to the point where I was so unhappy that I couldn't live my life any longer like that. And once I'd learnt that lesson, boom, that version of me was no longer needed. And this can be quite scary because it's looked at as a death and rebirth phase. Like a phoenix. The phoenix burns in order to rise again. It's exactly the same process. But because we are not taught about this process, it's extremely scary because there's a certain version of you that does certain things in certain ways. And then all of a sudden, when that doesn't work, or when the partner itself for that version of you is gone, which is when you have the breakup. So when you have the breakup and that partner is gone, you've then got a decision to say, well, do I want to continue being as I am, or do I want to discover this new version of myself? And because we are taught, or we have learnt, not that we've been taught, learned growing up that change is very scary, we don't then look to discover this new version of ourselves, or we don't look at rebuilding to understand who this version of us is. We just go back to what we're used to. And when we go back to what we're used to, this is what stops us from evolving into the version of us that we are supposed to be. In our journeys, we forget who we are. Like, it's natural. This is what this whole experience is about of life, is to kind of forget who you are to remember who you are again. This is why these karmic lessons come to us, is for us to learn. And it's only when we learn the lessons do we actually get closer and closer to who we truly are, step by step. But it's up to you. Do you want to take on that mission? Do you want to take on that opportunity of growth? Because we all have a conscious choice. Are you fed up going on the same cycles? Because if you are, this is the biggest opportunity of growth here for you. Because when we go through a breakup, and when that version of us is expired, this is the biggest opportunity for you then to say, I choose me. I choose to understand, who the hell am I? Who am I? Who am I about? What am I about? What do I love? What do I hate? Who am I? Because I'm telling you now, if I was to call you out right now and I was to say, who are you? Who are you? How would you answer? Oh, hi, I'm Jade. I'm 31 years old. I'm a transformation coach and I'm living in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. That's how you would answer, right? That is not who I am. That is not who I am. That is my name, my age, what I do, and where I live. Is any of that actually about the depth of who I am? No, it's not. But that's how I would have answered years ago, because that's who I thought I was. Why? Because I sourced who I was based on the outside world. Because that's what everyone, not everyone, but that's what a lot of people know how to talk about themselves based on what they do on the outside world. But when I ask, who are you? I want to know who you are on the inside. And this is where the answer itself changes. Hi, I'm Jade. I'm a kind-hearted individual who has a heart full of love, who loves to give that love to the world in every single thing that I do. I love doing the most simplest of things, going to the beach, doing crossword puzzles, and supporting people in my life to rebuild and reconnect them to who they truly are. That's who I am. Can you see how much of a difference that is? Because I know who I am now. I didn't know who I was before. I didn't know what I liked, what I disliked. I didn't know any of that until I actually gave myself time to discover it. And this is what happens when a version of you expires. You then have the opportunity to discover, what is this new version of you going to be about? And then what happens is, as you go on the journey of healing, which is where I'm at, I'm consciously very much aware of how I desire to grow and how I desire to rebuild myself and make myself a better person each and every day. So I become very, very aware of what is holding me back from that. What thoughts, what fears, what beliefs are holding me back from being the best version of myself. And when I discover which beliefs and fears and limitations I have, I then discover where they're coming from. And once I discover that and I do the healing work around it, that version of me right there that was working with that limitation then expires. So then I have an opportunity to say, well, how do I want to rebuild the new version of me without that limitation? And that's where I have a conscious choice of how I rebuild myself once that limitation is gone. What empowered belief do I then want to reinstall? Because this is what it is. When you deprogram, you reprogram yourself. When you uninstall something that's not serving you, you then install it with something that's going to make you bigger and better. So how then do I want to install something so much more powerful to then make me a better version of me, aligning with the woman that I desire to become? That is the true journey of growth right there. And every single time a version of you expires, you have the conscious choice of how you desire to recreate the next version of you. And I don't want you to stop in this evolution of who you are based on what other people expect you to be. Because this is the one block that we have when we grow, is that a version of you expires. So as example, I will go back to when the version of me expired that wanted to be with my ex-partner. When that expired, I was like, oh my God, I no longer want to be with this man now. Now what? I can't imagine my life without him. But at the same time, I don't want to be with him. But what am I gonna do? Maybe if I just go back to that version of me, everything's gonna be okay. But then I then started to get more and more hurt by going back. And it was very, very clear that life itself was taking me on a whole new journey. And it's in that moment, instead of holding on and resisting, which was what I did and which was where the pain came from, I had to surrender to the process. I had to allow it to happen, because sometimes we try our best to micromanage something, but if something's not meant to be, doesn't matter what you do, Done. The version of you and the version of me and the version of him had expired. Done. I couldn't change that cycle. It was done. And it was only when I accepted that I allowed that version of me on a level to die. And this is why sometimes a relationship can be so challenging at the end of a breakup, because there is a big part of you, not him, you, that dies. Not just the relationship, there's a part of you in that that dies, because you were playing a version of yourself in that relationship that's now no longer needed. So you're going through a grieving process, which is more than okay. But don't stop at that point, because the most important cocoon that you can put yourself in is the rebirthing and rebuilding of yourself. And this is why I am here, because I have gone through that myself. I know exactly, step by step, after not only rebuilding myself, but rebuilding other clients of mine that I've had through my own journey. It's a very, very specific rebuilding process that we go through as women. And it's only when we rebuild ourselves from the depths of within us can we truly build a version of us that is unbreakable no matter what. Because as I say to my clients, when we're in a rebuilding process, there's still some of the house that's built, which is the house is us. So there's still some of us that's built. But do you want to rebuild a house that's already broken? Or do you just want to get rid of everything and start from the foundations up? Because come on, if you rebuild on an existing house that's already broken, 9 times out of 10, after about 3 or 5 years, it's going to collapse or there's going to be cracks again. We don't want that. We want to just get rid of everything to get to the core foundations, to rebuild the foundations, to then rebuild the house. Because that house is going to be long lasting, because it's fresh. It's built from scratch. And you know that the foundations that you've put in are that solid that that house is never going to come down again. And it's these foundations, it's rebuilding these foundations at the very heart of who you are that is going to make you into the best and truest version of yourself. Because when you rebuild yourself from the ground up, you will truly never need anyone else in your life, which is an extremely powerful place to be. Because you've proven to yourself that you no longer need anyone else apart from you. And then everyone else in your life will be an extra. You will no longer need to run after men. You will no longer need to stay in relationships that you're unhappy with because you're just scared to be on your own. You will no longer need to run after men. They will run after you, because you're going to be in that much of a secure, stable place as that lovely new house that you've rebuilt. You no longer need to go running. Your whole way of life will change. And that's based on you taking a choice of how you decide to process when a version of you has expired. That's all it is. And the thing is, once you learn, because us as women, we versions of us expire all the time. Believe it or not, we have a menstrual cycle. We bleed once a month. And during that bleed, a version of us comes out in that bleed. That bleed is not just blood, it's energy that's no longer needed in our body that comes out in the blood, which means that a version of us dies every 30 days. And during that whole period process, that version of us is coming out through blood. That's why sometimes periods can be heavier than others. And I actually had a client about 2 weeks ago. We had a huge breakthrough in her own journey, and we actually really processed something really deep. And she'd been waiting for about 2 or 3 months to, she felt there was something that needed to shift, and we were exploring it for quite a while. And it was only when a certain situation happened that we managed to get to the bottom of what she needed to clear. And once we cleared it, the period that she's had after that has been so heavy. Why? Because that blockage needs to now come out of the body itself. And she actually said to me, Jade, you do not know how much weight I feel has been lifted off my shoulders since I've had not only the cry, but now I've had this period as well. I said yes, because the remaining energy of that version of you is now fully out. Not only has it come out through emotions, but it's come out of your body through the blood that you're processing. This is what happens. This is how powerful we are as women. And you can probably look back and say to yourself, when have you gone through something emotional and has your periods been heavy? If they have, that right there is evidence of how that emotional situation that you've been through, how that's then come out of your body as a result. And how, believe it or not, you've grown through that. Every period that we have, we grow as women unconsciously without us even realizing. It's only when you want to do the conscious work and you decide to do the conscious work, which is very much understanding what is limiting you, you will be able to eradicate so many versions of you that have expired. So many versions of you. You will be able to mature as an individual in an insane speed. You'll be able to find all your limitations. We will heal them. We will do the work and we will eradicate them. We will get rid of them and then we will reinstall something. This is what the journey of growth is all about. It's insane. But the results that I have with my clients, especially if they're in deep one-to-one containers with me within 3 to 6 months, I will have a whole new woman sitting right in front of me. Because she's decided to consciously rebuild that house and be absolutely unbreakable as a result. Every single time a version of her expires, she rebuilds herself into something greater. This is what the expiration process is all about. And I have done this episode for you to understand that if you have all of a sudden changed overnight, this is the reason why. Because a version of you is no longer needed in your story going forward. I know that sounds sad, but it's about looking at that version of you, thanking her, loving her for getting you to this point, and then saying to yourself, now I'm ready to welcome in the new. And that is so powerful right there. So, so powerful. And that is the journey of growth. So you can understand, in a nutshell, the cycles that we go through as women. I am currently, yet again, in the middle of an old version of me leaving while rebuilding the next version of me as a result. And this has probably been one of the biggest ones for a while actually. Um, because I feel like I'm really stepping into a new version of me in life, in business, in relationships, in friendships. So much is evolving and growing with this next version of me. And I'm actually quite excited as I sit down and rebuild this next version. So, yeah, I think I do need to take some time off socials in order for this to happen because I feel like I need to cocoon myself in my own energy. And as per, it's happening perfectly astrologically because today is the day after the new moon in Scorpio. And new moons are all about new beginnings. And after eclipse season of getting rid of the old, this new moon is so important because it really is welcoming in the new beginning. So that is exactly what I'm going through right now. And yeah, I'm truly, truly so excited how this new beginning is going to be rebuilt, how this new version of me is being built. I'm excited. So we will see. So watch this space. So I'm going to leave it there. That's all the wisdom for you for today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week. Keep shining, keep smiling, my gorgeous souls. And as always, I will catch you on the next episode.